Hey Force Barbell family, it's Technique Tuesday today and I'm here to talk to you about deadlifts. I think deadlifts are probably one of the most well-known of the lifts and probably one of the most misunderstood of the lifts as well. No matter where you go, what forum you watch, what elite level lifter you watch, you're pretty much always going to have kind of two schools of thought. When you're watching a video in the comments, you're going to have the person that's like, whoa, dude, you're totally a badass because you're deadlifting 900 pounds. And then you're going to have the other school of thought, which is, dude, you're going to hurt yourself, you're rounding your back, your technique's bad, and you're going to have all the internet coaches out there that are, they don't understand the deadlift well, and why deadlifting the way elite deadlifters do is also important. So today I'm going to kind of clear up some of the schools of thought that that kind of dictate, you know, the people who think the deadlift is the sexiest thing out there, because it is. It's one of the biggest bang for your buck exercises you can do, and also kind of clear up why some of the internet coaches out there don't really have a full picture of what it means. But real quick, I just want to kind of give my idea of why everybody on the planet should deadlift. Here it is. So it doesn't matter who you are. If you are a weekend warrior, it doesn't matter if you're a recreational runner. Deadlifts are going to make you a better athlete and a better human. And I want to dispel some of the myths, because it's really, really important that everybody out there, in my opinion, it's really important that everybody does deadlifts, but that everybody does deadlifts appropriately for you, so that you can get the most bang for your buck, so to speak, out of the exercise and keep yourself healthy and well. Because it doesn't matter who you are, if you're injured and you can't train, that's not going to make you a better version of you and help you progress to your goals. So real quick, the reason I think everybody should deadlift is because literally everybody deadlifts. So it doesn't matter if you're a gardener and you need to take your bucket of dirt or supplies out to the garden, you're going to deadlift. Right now we're stuck in quarantine. You get the Amazon people to drop a package at your door. Guess what? That thing's not going to magically teleport into your house from your doorstep. So you're going to have to deadlift your package to take it inside. And if you're none of those things, right? If you're a couch potato and you're never going to lift anything ever, and all you do is sit on the couch, guess what? When you get up from the couch to go get the remote or go get your favorite beverage from the fridge, you have to deadlift your body out of your chair. So it doesn't matter who you are, deadlifts is going to make you a better version of yourself. So it's important that you understand how to deadlift properly, how to deadlift according to your goals, because there's different variations of deadlifts that are more appropriate for different reasons to deadlift. And then really just how to keep yourself safe if you're an average everyday person that's trying to deadlift. Because there's so many rumors out there, and there's so many videos on how to deadlift, but I don't think there's many videos out there that kind of show the difference between these deadlift variations that I'm about to show you, and why each one should be possibly in your repertoire, or why you really shouldn't use that version of the lift at all to help you get to your goals. So we're going to set you up on the side view so that you can see what's going on with each of these variations, and then you can start to tinker with them for yourself at home. Alright, so I've got you set up over here on the side view so that you can see what's going on with my body. This is the best way to video yourself if you're trying to if you're at home working out and you want to see how your deadlifts look. This is the best way to do it, so that you can kind of see exactly where your body's positions are, because when you're from the front, you can't see where I'm sitting. Are my hips over my knees? Is my chest too far back? In this way, you can see exactly the position that you're in. So want to make sure if you're doing this at home and kind of checking your own technique, videotape yourself from the side, just like this, so that you can see what's going on. So the 3 variations of the deadlift that I'm going to talk about today are the clean deadlift, the deadlift, and the round back deadlift. Now, the round back deadlift is the one that everybody goes crazy. All the internet coaches come out of the woodwork when they see somebody lifting heavy weights with the round back deadlift. And there's good reason for that. It is probably the most specific and probably the least useful for the most people. And it's the one that I constantly see people doing regardless of what their goals are. I constantly see people round back deadlifting, and what that means is when they get down there, they stand over the bar, they reach down, they grab the bar, and they stand up with it. And they've got this round back position to deadlift. And there's reason for that. There's reason that some of the heaviest deadlifters in the world deadlift with a round back. It's not as unsafe as a lot of people would probably think, but it's also, and that's why, you know, some of the most elite deadlifters in the world are able to lift that way, is because they've prepared their body for that, and so it's not as unsafe as you think. With the round back deadlift, if you're gonna try it, you need to put it in the right context. Otherwise, you're kind of wasting your time, and you need to do it the right way so that you don't hurt yourself. The way you round back deadlift, our thoracic spine, so basically from the rib cage up, is meant to fold forward. It is meant to be that way, and if you're gonna round back deadlift, this is where you want to round. Your lower back is actually extended, and it's meant to stay extended a little bit. And when people get into problems, it's when they get their hips really tucked in and they get that lower back really round. That's when people start to have worse problems than they need on the deadlift. So if you're gonna do a round back deadlift, really the only reason you would really want to do a round back deadlift is if you're a strength athlete, if you're a power lifter, and moving the most weight, creating the maximum amount of force that you can possibly create is a really, really important thing to get you to your goals. So if you're a competitive power lifter, competitive strongman, if you're a thrower, you know, a big, strong athlete like an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman, people who really need to be stable and steady, wrestlers, people who need to be strong against external forces and are gonna get out of position. Those are the kinds of things that you need a big, strong, heavy deadlift for. And if that's not you, I wouldn't recommend deadlifting this way. So that being said, if you are one of those people that you need a big, strong number on a deadlift, then here's how to do a round back deadlift. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're staying nice and tight through your lower back and rounding through your upper back. You want to let your arms hang as low as you possibly can without caving through that lower back, because that's where, again, lower back is not meant to fold forward. So we want to keep that little bit of extension and reach through the upper back and shoulders, not the lower back. So here's the round back, okay? So we want to keep our lower back nice and tight, really get our upper back as round as we can, and you can see in that position I've gained some hip height and some leg position, so I'm not having to move the weight as far as possible. Now the other thing you'll see in this position is that my levers are different than they are here. So my hips are closer to the bar, my head's not as far over the bar with a round back deadlift. And so that kind of coils me up like a spring so that everything's driving in the same vertical direction rather than extending back and needing to create more torque in order to lift a heavy weight. And that's why you'll pretty much always see at the elite levels, even not at the elite levels, you'll see athletes default to the round back position as they get heavy. And what I say is, for the most part, get a big number, but get it without, borderline turning into a round back deadlift, but not going full bore into a round back deadlift if you're an athlete, because it requires less hip mobility, it requires less torque, and it puts you out of position for what you're going to actually be doing. It's less functional for an athlete. So if I'm a sprinter, I need to be able to stay tall, I need to be able to get my knee up nice and high and move from the hip. And if I'm in this position when I'm sprinting, I'm going to lose every race possible, regardless of how much weight I can move in the weight room. So as a sprinter or as an everyday athlete, really the ideal position is to load our hips with a regular deadlift and kind of push the boundaries to where we fail technically. We don't want to keep going after our technique breaks down, because at that point we're really just loading up the bar for the sake of numbers and for the sake of looking sexy in the weight room, but it's not really going to apply to sport the same way a regular deadlift would, or even a clean deadlift. So that being said, I'm going to progress now into the regular deadlift, so a powerlifting deadlift, and then I'll show you the clean deadlift, which is even a little bit more athletic for the athletes who need to lift less weight. So again, a deadlift, so a round back deadlift is like elite strength athletes. A deadlift is going to be strength athletes as well as anybody who needs to maximize hip drive and leg power. So a regular deadlift is a really, really good way to get your lower half maximally strong, and you want to kind of borderline, if you really are looking for force production, you want to kind of borderline fall into that round back position, but not just dive all the way into it. So that being said, I'm going to show you both the deadlift as well as the clean deadlift so that you can see the differences in the two, and then I'm going to talk about them and why you should use one versus the other. So here's a deadlift. For a deadlift setup, you're going to walk your feet as far under the bar as you can, and that's going to force you to keep your shin vertical and push your hips back. So if you set up this way, you're going to notice, in order for me to get down here, if I bend my knees and push my knees forward, that bar is going to start rolling away from me, and now I'm going to get set up in a clean deadlift position. So this is a clean deadlift position, and this is a deadlift. So that's the difference. You can see my hips are a little bit higher on a deadlift than they are in a clean deadlift. You can see my knees aren't bent quite as much, and my torso is bent forward farther in a deadlift than a clean deadlift. So you can see the difference in those positions: deadlift, clean deadlift. And again, you can see the only thing that's really changing, I'm keeping my spine in a nice neutral position, and I'm not really changing the position of my spine, as like I'm not rounding or bending my spine. All I'm doing is changing its orientation in space. So with a deadlift, you want to keep your hips a little bit higher. With a clean deadlift, you want to drop your hips a little bit lower, and that's going to load your legs a little bit more. All right, so here's the real question. Why do I need to know the difference between a clean deadlift and a deadlift? Here's the answer. As an athlete, somebody who needs to move fast and be explosive, I need to set up in a position that is like what I'm going to do on the field, and I need to set up in that position and get really, really strong in that position. As an athlete, somebody who's going to jump, somebody who's going to sprint, somebody who's going to run, I need to have my hips loaded over my feet, my knees bent, and my chest over my knees and toes. So from this position, I can jump, right? If I'm gonna sprint, that's the position I'm gonna sprint from. If I'm a runner, anything you do as an athlete, if I'm a baseball player, this is the position I'm gonna be in. It's the universal athletic position. If I'm guarding somebody in basketball, if I'm a linebacker, buzzing my feet, getting ready to go make a play, every position in sport is gonna come from that knees forward, out over your toes, weight on the ball of your foot, a little bit more upright position. And so as an athlete who's gonna be doing those things on the field, a clean deadlift is gonna set you up in a more athletic position than a deadlift. That being said, there's certain types of athletes, again, like a thrower, who needs to be able to maximize force production. Throwers, deadlifters, strength sport athletes, offensive, defensive linemen, people who are, like I said earlier, wrestlers, people who need to maximize strength and stability rather than athleticism and dynamic explosive movement, are going to be better served using the regular deadlift because it's a stronger, more efficient position and in order to move weight. And so here's where, athletes should move weight, but also move it from positions that they're going to use on the field to maximize their sport. And if maximizing force production, because I'm in hand-to-hand combat as an offensive lineman who's going to set up and be in a really strong, upright position with my hips behind my heels, boom, I'm going to be in that position. As a thrower who's going to load into this hip behind heel position for a power position, you need to be able to get into those positions. As a wrestler, if I'm a grappler, I'm going to be here. If I'm locked up and tied up, I need to be super strong in this position. So if maximizing strength and stability is something you need to do, that's where a deadlift comes into play. And if maximizing speed, power, explosiveness, and dynamic movement, that's where a clean deadlift comes into play. So also mobility, right? So as an athlete who has tight, locked up hips, one of the things that I try to get all of our athletes to do is get into a good, clean deadlift position first, so that we can maximize range of motion. And then, if they are a strength kind of athlete, we're going to transition them and kind of balance out clean deadlifts and deadlifts, and really throw in some Olympic lifts too, in order to get them the dynamic, explosive side of things, but also maximize their strength capabilities as well. So, again, just going to kind of show you the difference in position. Clean deadlift, your barbell is going to be out here over your toes. All right, kind of over that last shoelace. You're going to drive your knees down into the barbell so that your shin goes to the barbell, and your hips are going to sit kind of directly over your heels rather than back behind them. And then again, you want to stay up nice and tall. And from that position, we just want to push the legs and drive up. Now, here's one of the things that you'll notice, and why this is kind of a spectrum, is the round back deadlift is probably the way that you can lift the most weight. The clean deadlift is probably the most athletic way to lift the weight. And each one, so from the athletic end to the heavyweight end, as you start to get heavier and really challenge your capacity to move weight with each lift, you're gonna default into the next one. So a clean deadlift is actually going to fall apart when it gets too heavy and turn into a regular deadlift. And this is where I see most people having the biggest problem with their deadlift, is because they just load up the weight, and it becomes inherently, as it gets heavier, it becomes inherently more dangerous because the intensity is higher. And anytime you increase intensity, you're going to increase the danger of the lift. So if you're an athlete, stick with clean deadlifts. If you're a baseball player, if you're a, if you're a running back or a middle linebacker or a defensive back, wide receiver, clean deadlifts are going to serve you really, really well. If you're a recreational gardener, if you're a recreational runner, if you're just out here trying to live a fit, healthy life, clean deadlifts are probably the best thing you can do, bang for your buck. One exercise that hits the most things, it's either clean deadlifts or squats. So if you're going to pick one exercise to stay fit with, the deadlift and the clean deadlift is going to be your best friend because it requires the most mobility. It requires the ability to bend your hips and your knees in order to get to a good athletic position, and that's the best thing you can do. So as you progress with a clean deadlift, okay, you're going to come from this position, and as you load it up and it gets heavier, you're inherently going to get stuck on the floor and pull yourself into a deadlift position. So when you get heavy with a clean deadlift, as your technique falls apart, you're going to kind of fall out of a clean deadlift into a regular deadlift, and that's okay. But I wouldn't take it any farther than that if you're a speed, power, explosive athlete. If you're a big, strong athlete and you need that strength, go ahead, progress from that clean deadlift. Right, as it gets heavier, you're going to deadlift it. And then as you're maximizing strength, you're probably going to have some of that happen as you're lifting the weight. And that's probably okay. Again, because you've spent the time progressing from the least dangerous, most athletic kind of deadlift, the clean deadlift, and you've prepared your body progressively for those heavier deadlifts, and that's why it's not as dangerous as most of the internet coaches out there would make it seem. That said, it may not be, loading up a barbell heavier and heavier may not be the appropriate thing for your specific goals, because it is inherently a little bit more dangerous as you do that because the intensity goes up. So you're gonna really, again, I can't stress this enough, and this is what we do. This is really why people pay us for custom programming, is because these are the level of details that we look into for an athlete or a client, an individual, when we're looking at their goals, when we're talking about why are we doing any of the stuff that we're doing. This is the level of detail that we really get into when we're creating a program or coaching somebody. Because we want to get you to your goals with as little collateral damage as possible. As an athlete, as a strength athlete, there's a little bit more risk tolerance involved, but for a client who's just trying to stay fit and healthy, we are going to have you deadlift, but we really don't want to get you hurt in any way, shape, or form, so we're going to keep it lighter, we're going to keep it safer, we're going to put you in positions that are a little bit more challenging from a mobility standpoint, from a stability standpoint, and that's going to progress you into those kind of lower phases, the more athletic, dynamic kind of places to be. And then, if we don't have deadlift, if we don't have a bar to deadlift, we can really progress into some of the other implements that we use, kettlebell, and we can get you using those. Dumbbell, we can get you using that. Again, we can do body weight squats and simulate a deadlift position with just your body weight and really get you strong and healthy and stable and active in those positions. So that's really the level of detail that we're going to pay attention to what it is that you want, where you need to go, and that way we can get you there with as little collateral damage as possible. So if you need some help with deadlifts or any other lift, feel free to reach out to us. I hope this video has helped and will give you some insights into why deadlifting, why you should be deadlifting, and how you should be deadlifting to meet your goals. Put your feet right up underneath it and move them out. There you go, right there. Bend your butt down, chest up. There you go, go.
I did it.